Welcome back to my book nook, where I share some of my favorite books, recent reads, TBRs, and everything in between. Today I'm really excited because I thought that I would share my top 3 books from the last 3 years. So that's what we're gonna do. I'm gonna have some honorary mentions, and yeah. So let's just get into it. So we're going to be doing 2022, 2023, and 2024, starting with 2022. So 2022 was the year I got back into reading. For some reading stats, very minimal stats, I read 55 books in 2022. 2022 was definitely the year that I actually started reading a lot more. I was a reader before, but I would generally read somewhere between 5 to 10 books a year. And then 2022 came and I got really into reading again, which was really exciting. So 2022, my honorary mentions for that year are I'm Glad My Mom Died by Jennette McCurdy, The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid, The Attic Child by Lola J, and Hamnet by Maggie O'Farrell. It was really hard not to include Hamnet in my top 3, but I think the 3 that I have for my top choices make sense. So, number 3, we have My Dark Vanessa by Kate Elizabeth Russell. I remember reading it during the summer of 2022, and it just absolutely destroyed me. It broke my heart. It made me really think critically about survivors of relationships with power imbalances that can't be fully consensual, and age differences. I would definitely look up trigger warnings going into this book because it is very, very dark. It is hard to read. It is somewhat reminiscent of Lolita, if you've ever read that. This story centers, what's her name? This story centers Vanessa, who is 15 years old in high school and falling in love with her teacher, who is, I believe, 42 years old when she's 15. And yeah, it's really disturbing, really twisted, really dark. You get dual timelines of her when she's 15 and her 17 years later when she is an adult. And this English teacher is older and is being accused of harassment and assault by his students. So it's really her figuring out her place in all of this and kind of figuring out what their relationship meant to her. So yes, really recommend this book. Would look up trigger warnings. That's My Dark Vanessa. The second book I have here is none other than Circe by Madeline Miller. This book is just one of my favorite books of all time. I love Circe. I love her story. If you don't know who Circe is, she's the daughter of Helios, who is the god of the sun. And Circe, if you don't know, she's part of the Odyssey, and she's sort of trapped on this island. It's her island, and anyone who comes to visit her island either gets shipwrecked or has some other adventure. And this really just centers her story, her experience, and I think Madeline Miller characterizes her in a really interesting and powerful way. And I just love Madeline Miller's books. And we went to the same university, so that's cool. My top book of 2022, The Astonishing Color of After by Emily X. Arpan. This book, when I read it, just honestly changed my life. I really want to go back and reread it. I read a friend's copy, so I actually haven't read my own copy of this book. So I really want to go in and annotate it. But this centers Lee Chen Sanders, whose mother dies by suicide at the beginning of the novel. and she decides to travel to Taiwan to meet her grandparents for the first time, her mother's parents. And this story is just about this young girl learning more about her mother, unraveling her mother's past, and coming to terms with her death. It has a lot of magical realism elements that I thought were just so beautiful. And yeah, I really, really, really highly recommend this book, but I would also look up trigger warnings if you're typically sensitive to books with suicidal ideation and suicide. That is 2022. Moving on to 2023. I'm very excited about these books. 2023 was a very good reading year for me. I read 58 books, which is the most I've ever read in a year, and some of my honorary mentions for favorites are 7 Days in June by Tia Williams, Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir, Babel by R.F. Kuang, and If We Were Villains by M.L. Rio. My top 3 books for 2023 begin with Beach Read by Emily Henry at number 3. This book really just made me fall in love with Emily Henry and her genre of romance. This story follows January and Gus. They're both writers, and they challenge each other to write the other person's typical genre. It is just a beautiful story, and it really made me believe in romance books again, because I was falling into a pit and not really enjoying the romance books I was reading. So yes, love Emily Henry, specifically this one. Next we have The Adventures of Amina Al-Sarafi by S.A. Chakraborty. I love a pirate story. I love a female pirate. I love the queer elements of this story, the queer characters, and the adventure. This book did it for me. It wasn't a perfect book, but it was perfect for me, and I loved it. This story follows Amina Al-Sarafi, who is a mother and just a renowned pirate of the Indian Oceans. Yes, she's one of the most notorious pirates of the Indian Ocean, and she comes out of retirement to save herself, save her daughter, and to just have one last adventure. So I would highly recommend this book. My number 1 book for 2023 is the only physical copy I don't have in this video, and that is Tom Lake by Ann Patchett. I listened to the audiobook, of course, with Meryl Streep, and I absolutely adored it. The lead character in Tom Lake is very reminiscent of actually Meryl Streep. She is an older ex-actress living on a orchard, I believe, with her daughters. It's the pandemic, though they don't really talk about it that much. That's just the setting that brings all her daughters home. And they find out that their mother once dated Peter Duke, who is this super famous actor. Their mother just tells the story of the summer that she and Peter Duke knew each other, and it just is so beautifully told. And yeah, I just love Meryl Streep as well. So yeah. So those, including Tom Lake, were my top books of 2023. Finally, we have 2024, last year. In 2024, I read 49 books, which was somewhat frustrating that I didn't make it to that 50 mark, but it's okay, we let it go. And for 2024, my honorary mentions include Piranesi by Susanna Clarke, Finding Me by Viola Davis, Alone with You in the Ether by Olive Blake, and Happy Place by Emily Henry. But today, for my top 3 books, these honestly don't have a specific order like the other ones, because I love them for very different reasons. So yeah, I am going to start though with In the Dream House by Carmen Maria Machado. This book is a memoir, but it is told through very short, like page-long sort of entries is kind of the feeling of it. There's a lot of magical realism and comparison to this dream house that Machado talks about. This book does center around queer relationships and domestic abuse, emotional abuse in queer relationships. So I would definitely issue a trigger warning for that, but I think this is a really, really important book to read, and I can't wait to get more into Maria Machado's other works. Next we have Just for the Summer by Abby Jimenez. This was my first Abby Jimenez book, and I fell in love with it. I loved Justin. I thought he was just such a perfect lead male character, and yeah, this, just along with Emily Henry, just revives my love for romance books. This story follows Justin and Emma. Emma is a traveling nurse, and Justin puts on Reddit that he has this curse that everybody he dates, the next person that they then date, they end up marrying. So he breaks up with someone, they end up next dating their to-be husband, to-be whatever. That was not the best way of putting it, but you know what I mean. So yeah, it's supposed to be just a quick fling between Emma and Justin. They're trying to break each other's curses because Emma is like, I have the same experience. So yeah, this book. And lastly, we have the renowned, the mega popular Powerless by Lauren Roberts. I have only read this book and the novella. I'm really scared to get into the last two books because I've just heard such negative reviews or just disappointment surrounding those books. But this made me feel like I was a teenager reading fantasy books for the first time. It just like had all the feels, all the like fantastical elements. It had a kind of Hunger Games type setting in an arena, and I just loved the characters. This follows Peyton and Kai. Peyton is what is called an ordinary, so she does not have any magical abilities or magical talents. I forget what they call them. Oh yeah, the elites. So the elites and ordinaries. The elites have powers, ordinaries don't, and the king has declared that all ordinaries must be killed. So Peyton has to hide that she's an ordinary. But what happens when the king's son, whose primary job is to kill ordinaries, begins to have romantic feelings for Peyton? It's a really good book. Recommend. Alright, so these are all the books we talked about today. Thank you so much for watching. I would love to see your videos, your top 3 books from the last 3 years if you want to do something similar to my video. And yeah, I will see you next time.
I walk towards the moon. All I think about is